Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. You're watching Updates at Noon. I'm Cynthia Arthur. The implementation of the Conditional Movement Control Order (CMCO) is not an obstacle for Deepavali celebrations this year. Prime Minister Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin expressed hopes that Hindus in the country will still celebrate Deepavali joyously by complying with the stipulated Standard Operating Procedure (SOP). The Prime Minister, in wishing all Hindus a very happy Deepavali, invited all Malaysians to respect and appreciate the diversity that exists in the country by sharing in the joy of the celebration.
Rakyat Malaysia bertuah kerana negara kita terdiri daripada masyarakat yang berbilang agama dan kaum. Setiap kaum mempunyai budaya, tradisi dan adat resam masing-masing yang menjadi sumber kekuatan kita sebagai sebuah negara majmuk yang aman, harmoni dan bersatu padu. Justru saya ingin mengajak saudara dan saudari untuk bersama-sama menghormati dan juga menghargai kepelbagaian yang wujud di negara kita dengan berkongsi kemeriahan perayaan Deepavali yang disambut oleh penganut agama Hindu di Malaysia ini. Semoga Pesta Cahaya Deepavali pada tahun ini akan memberikan sinar harapan pada kita semua untuk mengharungi pelbagai cabaran getir yang sedang pun kita hadapi pada masa ini. Bersama-samalah kita berganding bahu, bersatu padu dengan semangat yang cekal dan tabah untuk masa hadapan Malaysia yang lebih cerah buat kita semua.
He also advised Hindus to celebrate the Festival of Lights by not shaking hands or gathering in large groups and to practice physical distancing. Employers are advised to find the best method to monitor the productivity of employees who are working from home. Senior Minister Dato Sri Ismail Sabri Yaakob said this was to ensure that they are really doing their work from home and are not abusing the convenience provided to them.
Mungkin mereka beri assignment untuk siapkan hari ini, ada satu assignment yang mesti disiapkan besok. Dan mereka, majikan tahu berapa lama boleh siapkan assignment tersebut. Itu salah satu cara mungkin. Tapi ini adalah atas kebijaksanaan majikan lah. Ramai juga orang komplain takut ada yang sepatut bekerja pada rumah tapi pergi shopping kompleks dan sebagainya.
Previously, on the 20th of October, the government announced that only 30% of the maximum officers of civil services are allowed to be in the office daily until the end of the CMCO. The MySejahtera app is not for use of tracking individuals who flee from an area under Movement Control Order (MCO). Instead, according to Health Director General Tan Sri Dr. Noor Hisham Abdullah, the application was developed to assist the Health Ministry (MOH) to monitor COVID-19 active cases.
MySejahtera ini kepunyaan Kementerian Kesihatan, jadi tak benar mengatakan kita menggunakan MySejahtera untuk menjejaki. Dan MySejahtera digunakan kalau ada kes yang positif di suatu kawasan, barulah kita akan mendapatkan data-data tersebut untuk mengesan kes-kes yang positif untuk membantu Kementerian Kesihatan menjalankan pengesanan aktif.
In another related development, Tan Sri Dr. Noor Hisham admits that district health centres are receiving overwhelming numbers of calls from people wishing to know their screening results. He urged the public to be patient as the results can only be confirmed in about 48 to 72 hours. A total of 431 kilograms of ketum leaves worth 11,225 ringgit were successfully seized in 3 different raids through the northern zone of Benteng at the Malaysia-Thailand border. According to a media statement by the 6th Brigade Infantry Headquarters, the success was attributed to information from agencies and the public, as well as aggressive patrolling from the border control. The first raid by the armed forces troops found 12 white sacks containing ketum leaves worth 6,725 ringgit at Durian Burung, Kedah. All seized items were sent to Kuala Nerang Police Station for further action. Meanwhile, in Kuala Perlis, the Royal Malaysia Customs confiscated 169 kilograms of ketum leaves at an empty house. The house was believed to be a secret transit hub for the ketum leaves before getting sent off to neighbouring countries. All seized items were brought to the Kuala Perlis Customs Office to be examined. The decomposed body of a man believed to have died about 3 weeks ago was found in a four-wheel drive 4WD at an oil palm plantation in Cherang Nibong, Ajil yesterday. Hulu Terengganu District Police Chief DSP Muhammad Adli Mat Daud said the police received a call on the body's discovery at 5 p.m. and a team was mobilised to the scene. DSP Muhammad Adli said police had identified the victim as a 31-year-old man from Kampung Tok Randok, Ajil. He said based on checks done on the vehicle, it is believed that the deceased was a suspect who had fled using the vehicle from the Ajil police station 3 weeks ago.
Dan apabila diperiksa, kita jangkakan telah mati hampir 3 minggu lalu lah dengan keadaan mayat tu. Tapi bergantung kepada pemeriksaan nantilah, pemeriksaan awal. Jadi kita percaya kes ni ada kaitan dengan satu laporan polis yang sebelum ni dibuat oleh pemilik kenderaan ni lebih kurang 3 minggu lalu.
DSP Muhammad Ali explained that 3 weeks ago, the owner of the four-wheel drive vehicle, who is also the brother-in-law of the deceased, had brought him to the Ajil police station in connection with a drug case, but he fled with the vehicle while his brother-in-law was inside the station. The investigations are still underway and this case is currently classified as sudden death. The body was brought to Hospital Hulu Terengganu for post-mortem.
Wanakkam, salam sejahtera. Perayaan Deepavali kali ini dianggap sebagai detik permulaan. Saya berharap Festival of Lights ini dapat memberikan sinar dan kebahagiaan kepada semua kita. Walaupun keadaan tidak mengizinkan untuk kita kunjung mengunjung seperti mana kelazimannya, namun pada kita, hati dan jiwa tetap dekat. Saya, Saifuddin Abdullah, bagi pihak seluruh warga KKMM mengucapkan Selamat Hari Deepavali kepada semua rakyat Malaysia yang beragama Hindu.
UN warns war crime amid spiraling Tigray conflict. That and more coming up in our foreign segment. Italian military personnel on Friday set up a drive-in COVID-19 testing center outside the Juventus Stadium as COVID-19 infections dramatically surge across the country. The drive-through testing facility, called Drive-Through Defense or DTD, will act as a hotspot for rapid coronavirus swabs in the car park of the Allianz Stadium, home of Serie A's Juventus champions, handling some 1,000 tests per day. Military medical staff will support civil health workers carrying out nasal and oral swabs on car drivers who will have to wait just 15 minutes to know the result of the test. Testing centres throughout Italy have been struggling to cope with the number of people trying to attain swabs and ascertain if they are infected with the virus. The northern regions of Piedmont and Lombardy, centred on Italy's financial capital Milan, remained the hardest hit areas of the country, and they have been affected by the most stringent curbs. The Health Ministry said 37,978 new COVID-19 infections were registered over the past 24 hours. The ministry also reported 636 COVID-related deaths, up from 623 the day before, and the highest figure since April. A total of 43,589 people have now died because of the COVID-19 in Italy since the disease came to light in February. Police on Friday were evacuating a building housing French video game maker Ubisoft's Montreal offices amid conflicting media reports that a possible hostage-taking situation was underway, but was later reported to potentially be a hoax. An earlier tweet from police said officers were sent to the location after a 911 emergency call, adding that no injuries had been reported. Citing police sources, CBC News reported that the 911 call that triggered the operation was a hoax. The center of the operation, which started earlier in the day, is the building that houses Ubisoft's Montreal offices, among other companies. Aerial footage taken by the Quebec French news chain LCN showed people gathering on the rooftop terrace of the building, along with heavy objects left at the door to block it. Ubisoft employee told CTV News station in Canada that employees at the office were instructed via company memo to hide in an area that locks and to keep quiet. Police officers in combat gear as well as armored vehicles and ambulances surrounded the red brick building in Montreal's Mile End neighborhood north of downtown. The United Nations voiced concern that the conflict between Ethiopian government forces and insurgent northern leaders could spiral out of control and said war crimes may already have been committed. The 10-day-old war has already killed hundreds, pushed thousands of civilians into Sudan, and raised fears it may draw in Eritrea or pressure Ethiopia's commitment to an African force opposing Al-Qaeda-linked militants in Somalia. OHCHR spokesman Rupert Colville said a massacre of civilians reported by Amnesty International would amount to war crimes if confirmed it was committed by one of the belligerent forces. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed accuses the Tigray People's Liberation Front TPLF, which rules the mountainous region of more than 5 million people, of treason and terrorism. Federal troops say the TPLF rose against them last week, but that they have since survived a siege and recaptured the west of the region. With communications cut and media barred, there has been no independent confirmation of the state of the fighting. Elon Musk's SpaceX is poised to send a crew of 4 astronauts to the International Space Station on Sunday evening in NASA's first operational mission using the Crew Dragon capsule. The Crew Dragon capsule, named Resilience by its crew, is due to launch atop a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket at 7:27 p.m. on Saturday from NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Cape Canaveral, Florida, carrying 3 U.S. astronauts and 1 from Japan. The roughly 8-hour flight to the station will be SpaceX's first operational mission, as opposed to a test after NASA officials this week signed off on Crew Dragon's design, ending a nearly 10-year development phase for SpaceX under the agency's public-private crew program. Musk, who usually attends high-profile SpaceX missions in person at Kennedy Space Center, said Thursday that he took 4 COVID-19 tests on the same day, with 2 returning negative and 2 producing positive results. Whether Musk came into contact with the astronauts was unclear, but unlikely since the crew has been in routine quarantine for weeks prior to their flight on Sunday. NASA contracted SpaceX and Boeing in 2014 to develop competing space capsules aimed at replacing its shuttle program that ended in 2011 and winning off dependence on Russian rockets to send U.S. astronauts to space. Paris's Eiffel Tower lit up on Friday evening to commemorate victims of the 2015 attacks at a time when France is again on high alert following a new wave of ideologically driven violence. Parisian landmark, after a few moments of darkness in remembrance, was then illuminated with a message reading, "In memory of all victims of terrorism," to mark the day. The November 2015 rampage by suicide bombers and gunmen killed 130 people, wounded hundreds and left deep scars on the nation's psyche. Premier Jean Castex laid wreaths at venues across the capital that were hit that night. The first outside the National Stadium, where the coordinated bloodletting began during a soccer match attended by then President François Hollande. France is back on its highest security alert since September following a stabbing outside the former offices of the Charlie Hebdo magazine, the beheading of a history teacher who had shown his class cartoons of the Prophet Muhammad, and a fatal attack in a church in Nice. In the famously traffic-choked streets of Brazilian megalopolis Sao Paulo, two men have invented a novel way of getting from point A to B, and they are raising a lot of eyebrows in the process. On a recent weekend, Vinicius Santos and Alessandro Russo could be seen coasting down the city's main thoroughfares on a pair of broomsticks, each one attached to a single motorized wheel. In motion, the contraptions look uncannily like the brooms used by witches and wizards in the Harry Potter universe, described in the famed books by British author J.K. Rowling and later depicted in a series of hit films. To steer, the duo simply lean in the direction they wish to travel. They said while it took a bit of practice at first, the broomsticks, which can reach top speeds of 60 kilometers per hour, were useful for day-to-day urban living. So far, the brooms are largely limited to personal use, but Russo and Santos have planned to market and sell the broomsticks, which cost about $743 each. Coming up in sports, JDT accepts government's decision and Liverpool Salah positive for COVID-19. The government has reiterated its stand on the decision not to allow Johor Darul Takzim JDT football team to play at AFC Cup in Doha, Qatar. Senior Minister Dato Sri Ismail Sabri Yaakob said that the government is firm on its policy of not opening up international borders in an effort to curb the spread of COVID-19. The senior minister explained that JDT have been informed on the matter and had agreed not to send the squad to safeguard the health and life of players and sports officers.
Bayangkanlah, JDT satu pasukan yang mempunyai pemain-pemain profesional itu, kalau seorang saja kena, tak kira lah sama ada pemain ataupun bahagian teknikal kena, the whole team akan di-quarantine dan lebih menyusahkan pihak JDT sendiri. Jadi JDT faham perkara ini. Jadi JDT tidak ada masalah untuk tidak menghantar pasukan mereka ke AFC.
The ACL 2020 is scheduled to begin on 18th November and will last until 19th December next month. Meanwhile, the Asian Football Confederation, AFC, have confirmed the withdrawal of JDT from the ACL 2020 Championship. This following the government's firm decision on not allowing cross-border travel through international gateways. In a statement on their official website, AFC had explained that according to all rules of the championship, all of JDT's matches are considered forfeit. To avoid confusion, all points and goals earned by JDT previously will not be counted to determine the final standings of Group G. This means that only 3 clubs will compete in the group. They are teams Vissel Kobe, Guangzhou Evergrande and Suwon Samsung Blue Wings. Red Bull's Max Verstappen was fastest in both practice sessions on Friday as Formula One returned to Turkey for the first time in 9 years. The times at the Istanbul Park circuit were largely meaningless, however, with the Dutch youngster comparing the slippery combination of cold temperatures and fresh asphalt to driving on ice. Fastest by the end of the day, and teammate Lewis Hamilton poised for 7th championship on, marking the pit lane entry. The race weekend is being held behind closed doors as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Can you sing it?
Liverpool striker Mohamed Salah has tested positive for the COVID-19 on the eve of Egypt's Africa Cup of Nations qualifier against Togo. The Egyptian Football Association said Salah did not suffer from any symptoms, adding the other members of the team tested negative. The federation said Salah underwent the medical protocol after the team's doctor coordinated with his English club, in addition to his isolation inside his room and also isolating all his contacts. He will undergo further checks in the coming hours. Salah's positive test is another blow for Liverpool manager Jurgen Klopp, who is already facing a defensive crisis with the loss of centre-back Virgil van Dijk and Joe Gomez potentially for the remainder of the season. Added to that, the absence of the versatile Fabinho and right-back Trent Alexander-Arnold to less severe injuries, and Klopp's options are shrinking for the visit of Premier League leaders Leicester City to Anfield next weekend. Klopp will be hoping the remainder of the international window provides no more bad news. France striker Kylian Mbappe faces a late fitness test ahead of their Nations League A Group 3 clash away to Portugal. The Paris Saint-Germain forward missed Les Bleus' 2-0 home defeat by Finland with a thigh injury that made his presence for the Portugal trip on Saturday uncertain. Coach Didier Deschamps said Mbappe was going to do the first part of the training session on his own.
Il va faire la première partie de l'entraînement à part, parce qu'il a un travail spécifique, et on verra par la suite. Donc lui, comme d'autres joueurs, j'attendrai évidemment ce qui se passe aujourd'hui à l'entraînement. Et puis un point sera fait demain matin pour voir comment ils sont les uns et les autres avant que je prenne les décisions par rapport au match du soir.
Defenders Presnel Kimpembe, Lucas Hernandez and Benjamin Pavard and forward Kingsley Coman missed the Finland game, which ended France's 12-match unbeaten streak. The world champions are second in the table on 10 points, behind European champions Portugal on goal difference. Both teams shared points in a goalless stalemate in the first group meeting at the Stade de France last month. Sergio Ramos is set to become the most kept European footballer of all time when Spain visits Switzerland in the Nations League today. The Spain captain, who last year became his country's all-time appearance maker, is in line for a 177th match, which will take him ahead of former Italy goalkeeper Gianluigi Buffon as the continent's most kept player. Ramos, 34, will then set his sights on topping former Egypt player Ahmed Hassan's record of 184 appearances and becoming the most capped international player ever. Ramos made his international debut in a friendly against China in 2005 when Luis Aragonés was in charge, and is the only surviving member in the current squad to win the Euro 2008 title, which snapped Spain's 44-year wait for an international trophy. He was also part of the team that won Spain's first and only World Cup in 2010 and defended the European Championship title in 2012. He is the national team's 8th all-time scorer with 23 goals, swelling his goal tally in the last 2 years since becoming Spain's first-choice penalty taker. And ever present for Real Madrid, Ramos shows no signs of slowing down, however, and he has stated that he wishes to play for Spain at the rescheduled Olympic Games next year in Tokyo, as well as leading them into the European Championship in June. Both world number 1 Novak Djokovic and world number 2 Rafael Nadal said they were going into the ATP finals gunning for a big win to close out the 2020 season, which has been reshaped due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Both players said they were happy to be a part of the tournament, while also recognizing how the coronavirus has upended not only tennis but the lives of countless people around the world. Djokovic, who is in the running for a record-equaling 6th title at the event, said he hopes he can repeat some of his past success at the O2 Arena in London.
As much as I think it would mean to any other player being here and participating in this tournament, I would love to win the trophy. I mean, that's why I'm here. I mean, I'm, hoping I can repeat one of the successful years I had here. Obviously different opponents in different circumstances, but if I play well, I like my chances, and let's see how it goes.
The Serb will be in round robin with Russian Daniil Medvedev, Germany's Alexander Zverev and Argentine debutant Diego Schwartzman. Nadal, meanwhile, will be in a group with defending champion Stefanos Tsitsipas of Greece, Austria's US Open champion Dominic Thiem and Russian first-timer Andrei Rublev.
So excited to be back here in London. I know it's going to be the last year, and of course it's not the ideal situation to finish an amazing event that we have been part here in London for plenty of years already with amazing crowd. But worldwide situation is like this today. So hopefully the tournament will happen the best way possible, and hopefully we can see some very good tennis.
The ATP's Elite Year-Ender, celebrating its 50th edition, is being staged at London's O2 Arena for the final time, having moved there in 2009. Next year, it will move to Turin. This year's tournament will be staged without fans due to the surging COVID-19 pandemic, which has forced another lockdown in the United Kingdom.
Wabak COVID-19 adalah cabaran besar kepada kita. Namun, dengan amalan norma baru, kita depani bersama. Kami, warga kerja Kementerian Kesihatan Malaysia, mengucapkan Selamat Hari Deepavali kepada semua penganut agama Hindu. Sambutlah dalam keharmonian. Kita teguh, kita menang, dan kita mesti menang.
That concludes today's edition of Updates at Noon. In our top story, Malaysians urged to appreciate nation's diversity. Tune in to News at 10, coming up at 10 p.m. on Saluran Berita RTM on My Freeviews channel 123. You can also stream the news by surfing RTM's MyClick. Happy Deepavali. I'm Cynthia Arthur. Stay tuned to TV2.